you trying to do for real? For real.
Cosmic, psychedelic funk is what I came to do. Yep. I'm soul by funky. Hey. Soul by funky. I'm soul by cosmic soul.
Hey everybody, this is Alan T. Black.
And Nicole Lewis.
We want to welcome you to the Authors Authority Lounge, the official TV show for authors. We are happy that you tuned in, and we want to thank you for your continued support and viewership. And we want to just take a few minutes this morning just to kind of talk about authorship in general. How do things go for you in 2025? And what are your expectations for 2026 as we now head into the next month? So Nicole, why don't we just kind of kick it around and just kind of chop it up with that? So how do you think 2025 went for you and for others that you know as authors?
I think 2025 went by fast.
Yeah.
Like in a blink of an eye, it was over. So there's that aspect of things.
Yes.
I think 2025 was a great time of incubation that took place. There's a lot of projects that had gotten started from what I've heard, what I've seen, what I've experienced, and a lot of manifestation for 2026. Things that's coming out and finally coming to fruition. A lot of planning took place in 2025.
I think also too, and this is just my own thought about this, I really think that 2025 was sort of like a year of building and establishing the foundation for what authors are going to do in 2026. And I'm basing that on the fact that we went through a lot with the COVID era. Mm-hmm. And so I've just been of the opinion that it took at least a couple of years or so for people to kind of get back to maybe where they were. We lost the aspect of socialization. We lost this aspect of being connected to other people. We had to rely essentially on technology, which is a great thing, no two ways about it, but there was a lot that was lost in COVID, and I'm just getting the sense personally and professionally as an author that we're starting to get back to that vibe now where individuals are now saying, hey, now I can get back and get into my rhythm and everything.
I'm glad that you mentioned the technology piece, because as authors, we're starting to embrace the technology now. The kickoff of the ChatGPT, all these other new programs that are now available for us that wasn't available to us in previous years.
Yes.
So there's a lot more authors that are jumping on board with using it to their advantage, where normally sometimes there's projects that we've had, and that could take up to 10 years for us to get done.
True. That's very
That's
true.
now getting done within 6 months, because we have the ability to maybe bounce some ideas off of the AI, maybe doing some structural things, maybe doing some formatting, things that sometimes we would have had to push off or just got intimidated by.
Exactly.
We're now like, okay, I got this. Is kind of what happened in 2025.
And I think too, because I know that AI is going to be and will continue to be a very controversial subject. But as I'm looking at it, I'm kind of looking at it from the same perspective that I'm feeling like you are. We're in a time and a space, because of this technology being here with us, where it becomes like our assistant who can help us to, as you said, finalize a thought, kind of spruce together what it is that you kind of have, but you haven't been able to really crystallize it into its final form. So, and I know there are pros and cons about that, but at least for me, from the authorship side and from the music side, because I'm also doing some things musically using AI capabilities, is giving us that assistant that we need and somebody to, like you said, to bounce ideas off of.
Yeah, and I think the other aspect is, as authors, our books or our projects are our babies. And so we don't trust them with everybody.
Exactly.
So now we have somebody that for the most part, has an unbiased opinion. For the most part, is not going to be like, I'm going to steal this and, and take your idea and run with it. It gives a little bit more security in that aspect. But at the same token, we're also feeding the big conglomerate as well.
True.
So as we're feeding into it, we're expanding the AI's capabilities in that process. And for some people, they're really scared about, will that eliminate us? And the reality is AI can do what AI does only because people are contributing to it.
Right. It's a situation where it is what I call an inanimate object. And so the activation of it comes from us on the human side. Mm-hmm. So when you are inputting certain data, certain information, thoughts, aspirations, whatever the case may be, then it's going to say from the AI side at least to me, that's where it's going to generate or replicate something that you are trying to achieve in terms of your final thought process itself.
Yeah, definitely. I think that is the nuance that's taken us from 2025 going into 2026, is now we have, as authors, most of us will write, and we're not marketing geniuses.
That's a whole nother subject.
Right? But AI can help us with, how do I market my book a little bit more effectively? How do I promote, or how do I list my description a little bit more effectively on Amazon or on all these other platforms? What other platforms? The other thing is that AI gives us that ability to see the web and other resources a lot more broader, so that we can go, most people hear about Amazon, right?
True.
But what happens if I want to sell it on my own
Exactly.
website? Can I create my own website? Well, now you can have an AI generated website that can have you up and running in no time, where normally, now that's a starter. As you get further along, you're going to definitely want more professional techniques and different things and features. But just getting us started as a new author, new authors have a lot more visibility because of AI now. I know I use it, in not just as an author, but in my classes that I teach. Being nervous about creating a script, because that's not my forte. That's not how I write. So how do I write the script up for a video, for a promotional video that I need to do? Or how do I take my book and turn it into a book trailer? So it gives you those things that we don't think about until we think about them.
True. And that's important, because I think as we go down the road, for those who are going to be authors in 2026, I think the hardest thing to do, which sounds repetitive, the hardest thing to do is just get started. Yeah. Because it's natural for you to build up a mountain of, say, doubts and second thoughts and say, these are insurmountable. I don't think I can get past them. And so what's going to help is that you now have someone that you can assist you with what you want to get started. Right there, if it's on your phone, if it's your tablet, or if you're old school like me, if it's your desktop, then that's going to be encouraging. So what I'm seeing and what I'm hoping for is, now there should be an even higher growth of people who want to become authors, because we've talked about this on the program numerous occasions. It's worth repeating one more time. Everybody has a story, and everybody's story is greater than just themselves. Yeah. So what is the vehicle that you want to utilize to share your story? And if this is here, and if it's going to make that process do what I call work smarter rather than harder, then it seems to me you have to consider at least using it, trying it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I'm glad that you mentioned that because it just made me think about our elders in the community. A lot of them have stories that they want to tell, but they don't have the ability to write it, to type it out
Oh,
or to
yes.
write it out anymore. But they can have a conversation. And here's the amazing thing. Now you can record stuff and AI can transcribe it for you and then format it for you. And so a book doesn't have to be something that you write it down, but you tell your stories and those stories become a book. Because now you don't have to send it to somebody else and now you have to send it to a transcriber first and then you have to send it to an editor and then but this is one type of editor and then this is another type of editor and then you have to talk to all these different people. So instead of you now having all these different people in the mix of creating your story, which costs a lot of money,
It does.
honestly.
It does. It really does.
And now you can just record it on your phone, right? And it'll automatically transcribe it for you. And then you can go to another AI program and it'll format it for you. And before you know it, you have a book.
I think that's so important because you mentioned the elders, and I think for me that's a really attractive area simply because I find myself now looking back, and let's just take the case of my grandparents, particularly my father's mother, who was really a master baker. Well, she took all those secrets with her. And so that part of our family history, that part of our legacy is missing. And I find myself thinking, how cool would it have been? I know this is 50, 60 years ago, but it impacts where we are now because what if your grandmother or your grandfather has something that they want to share that could benefit you, their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren, but like you said, they're not comfortable sitting down, writing it. That's just not their thing. And we recognize that it's not designed for everybody, but if you could do it the way that you did, the imagination is unlimited as far as how much of that family history can be passed from one generation to the next.
Definitely. I remember having a conversation and it just reminds me so this is not my biological grandmother, but my great grandmother. We were like remodeling her house. Her house was like an old miner shack. So it was like way back in the days.
Okay.
And so we're tearing down the walls, and in the walls there's newspaper from the 1920s.
For real?
I was like, this is amazing. And so I started having conversations with her about, what did y'all do because she was alive during the Great Depression.
Oh, wow.
These are things that are so important for us to know even now that you don't know until you need that information.
It's true.
To have those little conversations about what did they do for entertainment? Why is there newspaper in the walls instead of regular
Now, see, I hadn't
insulation?
thought about that. That's a great question because now that you mentioned it, I'm thinking, why do we have newspaper? Is it for insulation? I don't know.
Yes, so if you ever pay attention to like the old school videos and movies where the homeless, they show homeless people, they show them covered in newspapers.
Right.
Newspapers, when stacked, creates an air pocket.
Mm-hmm.
That air pocket is what creates the insulation. So that's why they use
Okay.
newspapers in the walls.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So, but there are so many other little things that are needed right now that for them is like every day, oh, this is what we did. And for us, we're like, oh, well, we need to be able to do this.
Exactly.
I was watching a video on how they used to iron clothes before there was a hot iron.
Okay, you got my attention. So how did they do that?
So they rubbed it between two boards. They rolled it on like a rolling pin, and then there was like another board, and they rolled
To create the friction.
to create the smoothness. That's how they ironed clothes and their linen and stuff like that back in the day.
Wow.
I'm like, well, what happens if the lights go out? I'd like to be fresh and clean too.
Well,
You know, so I think this boom in technology is going to be, we have to use it for our benefit. And one of the greatest benefits is telling stories. And as authors, that's what we do, is we tell stories, whether they're fictional or non-fictional, whether they're fantasy or sci-fi or whatever. Being able to not only record those
Yes.
or get those pieces, but we have somebody else that's going to be coming on later that uses AI on a regular basis. So I am looking forward to that interview as well. But how do we go into 2026? Well, 2026 is, I mean, the sky's the limit, honestly. It's so much easier for us to put out good content.
yes.
Not just putting out content, because I mean, people can, and I'm not gonna knock it, will go in and do, hey, AI, write me a book on this, which is great, but now you have not given your experience or your perspective or your creativity into that space. So we still need that.
True.
Regardless, even if it's a textbook that's being written, we still
Right.
need perspective. And true, we all have our own biased opinions and biased perspective on things. But this is what I explain to my students. If everybody looked the same, talked the same, dressed the same, thought the same, this world would be nothing but black and white.
That's right.
So we need more authors as well. So I'm looking forward to more authors in 2026.
I am too. I just think that because of the fact that, and this technology explosion, at least for me, in the last 18 months or so has just gone wild. And the amazing thing, audience, is the fact that here we are in early 2026. We don't know what it's going to be like by, say, the end of 26 or 27. But because we have the resources and we have the accessibility, then as authors, we want to encourage everybody and encourage you who are looking at being authors to say, the roadblocks that were there in the past are not as prevalent as they have been, say, even 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So your story is important, and it does matter as far as you getting it out, because like we've said, you don't know who your story is going to impact. And I'm a fond advocate of the fact that whatever the story is that you write, there are going to be people that you are never going to meet, who could be on the other side of the world, that you're going to have an impact on. And that's just the aspect of the world is much smaller than it was, say, 5 years ago, because of what we're seeing due to this technology exploding.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because I am looking forward to, one of my visions was to have my book translated into other languages.
That would be so cool.
And so me and the other co-hosts will be going to Italy in June, and I'm looking forward to figuring out what that looks like to translate my book into Italian, translate my book into Spanish. But without AI, now there's two parts to it. I definitely have to have somebody that's native speaking to read it and make sure that the translations was correct.
Right.
Because there are the general language, and then there's the academic language. But that is a possibility that I thought I was going to have to learn all these different languages.
See just how powerful that is, because now it's opening up the international market for you, to the extent that, like you said, you don't have to learn the native language, because you're going to have somebody or something technology-wise that can speed up that process for you. So I look back at 2025, I think for authors locally, it was a good year. We're in Omaha, Nebraska, everybody. And so what I have seen And what I sense is there is almost a renaissance period that we're in, with authors just really coming out and sharing their stories. If it's fantasy, if it's, say, Christian related, if it's mystery, if it's satire, if it's children's books, it runs the gamut. And I'm always so impressed with that, just because I remember last year interviewing like Jessica McLaurin, and she writes kind of sci-fi fantasy type stuff. And I'm just sitting and I'm just like, I'm just blown away by what she has created, what, say, some other people have created as well. And I'm thinking, it just shows the opportunity that we all have to be able to, say, really tap into that creative that exists within each and every one of us.
Definitely. And I think the other aspect is looking at, now we can turn our books into movies much faster.
Yeah.
You know, with the additional parts to AI, now you can do video and audio. It just it expands our world so much bigger, and it gives us such a bigger impact on the world as an author.
Exactly.
I think looking at 2026, what's holding you back is really the question that we should be asking ourselves. What held us back in 2025 that we need to drop in 2025 and create in 2026? That fearlessness, that that idea of, if they can do it, I can do it too.
Thank you.
You know, I think so many people, I've talked to so many people, and I know you have, that I want to write a book. I'm thinking about writing a book. Well, there's nothing stopping you now. If you're afraid of, like for me, I'm gonna be honest, I'm a horrible speller, right? And so that was the reason why I didn't want to write a book, because I didn't want somebody to read my book and not be able to read it because how I spell, right? So I had to make sure that I had a great editor. Well, if I'm speaking,
Whole different thing.
it's going to translate the correct spelling, so I ain't got to worry about it.
Automatically. And so that's what's so cool about this, because, like you said, those roadblocks that I mentioned before, they don't exist. If you are not a good speller, then you have the audio version of doing what it is that you want to do. And now, because these stories are here and you can create them in terms of the content, like you said, now we have individuals who, because of technology, can now create short movies, something like that. And we're in an age where it's about visualization.
Yeah.
And people want to see it as much as anything, probably more than read it. If we're going to be honest, that's where we're trending towards. But to have that opportunity to go to the next level, and like you said, turn it into a short movie. I'm thinking about the fact that, just imagine, for those of y'all who still have your grandmother here, she's in the kitchen and you're recording on your phone, because you can record on your phone now and it looks just like it would in Hollywood to a certain extent. And you take that video, you create the soundboard for it or whatever, and you now have a video / audio book. And how does that translate to being passed down to your kids, to your grandkids or something like that? It's staggering to me to think about.
Yeah, I think we are in such a great space that if we don't grab a hold of it today, if we don't grab a hold of it right now, it could pass us by.
Right.
We are in a time period where, like you said, if you've ever sat down with an older person, they love telling stories.
Sure.
You know, and what better way than to get that in a book and get their signature on that book before they transition. That's passed on. when we're having a family reunion or we're at their funeral, instead of mourning them, we're handing out their story.
Wow, that would be amazing.
You know,
That would be so amazing, because I'm thinking about that in that scenario where you're celebrating their life, and like you said, you are handing out the script of their life or something, or their life reflection with their own signature on it. I mean, realistically, it doesn't get much better than that, because now you have passed on
yeah.
living history to somebody else as such. So we're getting this has been so fascinating. We're already down to like a minute and a half, but what would you say to those who are thinking about doing something in 2026 with our last few minutes?
Get started now. Get started with recording. Get started with writing notes to yourself or typing up little notes, or start with a prompt. What do you think about, ask AI, what do you think about a book on this? Or we all have a message. Start with that. And then let your mind go and record it on some way, shape, or form. And your book will come to fruition.
And I think it's so important to do that, because the easier thing to do, I'm going to say, is to build up a wall of doubt and resistance. But continue to hide behind that wall. Where's that really getting you? So to those who are thinking about being an author, there's never been a better time, at least from my perspective. So don't let it slip away. This is your time, and don't overthink it. Just start, because there's an old Chinese proverb, 1,000-mile journey starts with the first step. So get started, y'all, in 2026. Make it happen. Don't be afraid. And hey, let's just do it. The Author's Authority Lounge. Look for your book in 2026, y'all. We're out.
What you trying to do for real? For real.
Cosmic psychedelic funk is what I came to do. Yep.